Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, and today we're going to talk about how to write a billion-dollar franchise. And this is something you want to be considering. You want to be thinking, this isn't just one movie. This might turn into quite a few. Action is one of those genres that if you really understand it, it is absolutely possible to have to go from nowhere, a writer that nobody knows in this industry, to being somebody that is making money off of every version that comes out from your franchise. So let me walk you through this. The value of this class, what we're going to do today, is this. It's going to solve some problems that keep people from winning contests. And, by the way, when you see an action contest out there, there's a bunch of them. Sometimes they'll have a couple hundred people who have registered, but sometimes there's some of them that are up to the thousands. And even what we're talking about today can make a difference for you in this area. It also will help you with problems that might have kept you from getting optioned or have kept you from landing representation. So, I only create classes that I believe can change people's lives in some way. Every one of these can make that kind of difference for you. Now, let's start with your plan to create an action franchise. First thing, you want to master the conventions. A lot of times I'll see people who, and this happens a lot, there are people who write dramas with action elements, or they'll write dramas with horror elements or something like that. When you're writing an action story, you want it to be very, very strong on these conventions. And the reason why is because producers are looking for the conventions. I'll show you those today, so you will know what they are. Second thing is you want to have a high concept idea. What we're talking about when it comes to action is big budgets. You can do an action story for 3 to 5 million kind of thing, but the truth is most of them are 30 million and up. So that means there needs to be a lot of marketing, which means you start with a high concept idea, something that's unique and compelling, that will surprise people and lure them into your story. You need to master the writing of action. If you write a drama and an action story the same way, the action story will look weak. So there are certain ways to write it that make a difference. And then number 4, you need to write a highly compelling pitch. We'll be talking about a couple of these today, actually number 1 and number 4. Each of those will help you out. So let's jump into it. The conventions. What are the conventions of action, by the way? Have you asked that? Have you thought about that? Just think to yourself right now, what are they? And let me give you our version. This is something, after working with about 40 action writers, we came up with this list. Here's our version. First, the purpose of action: to excite your audience with an adrenaline-stirring, fast-paced, big event story. I would say that's the vast majority of the ones that make it to the screen. And it is absolutely worth taking the time to figure out what will produce all 3 of those. Second, you need a demand for action. And this isn't small. If you have an action story where somebody is just going out and doing violent things and that kind of thing, but for no reason, there was no demand, it's just going to look like we're watching somebody who has an emotional problem. So there's some kind of problem or goal of which the only solution is a high level of action. That's what you need to build in. If you do that, then the whole story makes sense. If you don't do that, then again, it's just looking like, why are we watching this? I remember a long time ago watching some Chinese kung fu movies where basically two guys walked down the street, they got in a fight at this intersection, then they walked to another one, they got in a fight there, then they walked in the bar, they got in a fight there. None of it, there was no reason for it. We were just watching martial arts happen on the screen. And after a while, it became boring, if you can imagine. So all of these plot, character, situations are all designed to demand action. Again, you do that, and people in this part of the industry, the action-oriented producers, are going to love you. Third, there's a mission. And the mission is either stated or implied. If you look at the Mission Impossibles, right, the Tom Cruise movies, it's always stated. They tell him up front. He gets on a phone and it says, your mission, should you decide to accept it, is, and then they tell him the mission. There are times where things just happen, and now the response of the hero is to go on an implied mission. They're trying to make something happen. Maybe sometimes we don't even know what it is until it finally shows up for us. So the hero has to take down some kind of antagonistic force. They have to defend against overwhelming odds, or they've got to escape the unescapable. Your job is to make it that big, right? And if any of that doesn't exist, then you just go into a brainstorm session and figure out how to do it. You can do it. And then there's escalating action, which means whatever action is happening early on, by the time we get into the second act, it's bigger. By the time we get into the final act, it's way bigger, right? That final act, the climax of your story, should be the ultimate form of action for that particular story that could possibly solve the problem. So, and your hero. This is different than some of the other genres. You can have heroes in the horror genre who are not highly skilled. You can have heroes in dramas that have some action in them that are, people who are unlikely heroes and all that kind of thing. But in the action genre, you need somebody who is highly capable and skilled. This is somebody who knows what they're doing. They're a special forces person, they're a spy, they're somebody who has been trained to deal with whatever this situation is. The whole thing of violence is something that's normal to them. Often they bring a unique skill or talent to the fight that has them stand out from the other heroes in the genre. So if your hero, whoever that is somebody who looks like everybody else, every other hero, has the same skills as every other hero, fights the same way as every other hero, attacks the same way, all of that kind of thing. All that means is you just need another brainstorm session. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong. You just go back and brainstorm it again. And see how you can make this hero so interesting, so unique, that there's somebody that an actor would want to play. Your antagonist or antagonist, they're clearly evil, they're corrupt, they're malicious, and they necessitate decisive and expedient action to deal with them. Now listen, a couple of things here. If you bring in an antagonist who just happened to be in the spot and they finally are reacting, that's going to be difficult in an action story. You need somebody that demands that the hero and all the characters involved go to a higher level of action, which means they're evil, right? And they're never going to stop. They are going to continue fighting. They're going to continue doing their plan no matter what. And by the way, they have to be stopped because the stakes are so high. So again, if you don't have that, That just means you just need to do another brainstorm session. That's all. So, keys to creating an action franchise. First one is, again, brainstorm a unique high concept idea. And if you don't know how to do this, if you've never worked with this, don't worry. We have a class that it starts with that, basically. And second is become a master at writing action. These two, if you have these two, you have a really good chance. If you're missing either one of these two, you're not there yet, right? And it just all it means, don't feel bad. All it means if you're missing something is, oh, that's the next thing to learn. That's all, right? And I'll tell you one other thing. Because this genre is budgeted so high, just being good at writing action is not going to be enough. We had some writers who were good at writing action, and this is two of them specifically. We're in one of our classes where I was doing it live with them, and they came back and they said these producers had all turned them down. And I looked at their first scene, their opening scene, and I could tell why. It was an action scene that was average. So I told them at that point they needed to become masters at writing action. Both of them did, by the way. Both of them went out of their way. They worked like crazy on it. They learned like crazy. They kept improving the quality of the action. They were already okay writers, but when they improved the quality of the action, it changed everything. One of them ended up selling an action script. The other one ended up getting a paid writing assignment from a big action producer. And it was because of the quality of their action in their writing sample. And that was the writing sample they had written in the class. So these are the two things. Brainstorming high concept ideas. This is what makes your project highly marketable. It makes it easy to sell. Becoming a master at writing action is what makes your scripts incredible and causes audiences to absolutely love them. So now, how to brainstorm some big picture ideas. And these are all critically important to your success. Cool, you want to just go for a cool action hero or heroine. You want a unique villain. You want unique action. If you can get unique action that's something we've never seen before, that's amazing. You want an impossible mission and an intriguing action world. So let me walk you through a couple of movies that have done really well as franchises and show you each one of those. So starting with John Wick. This one has made over $1 billion so far. I don't think they're done with it yet. So it's done pretty well. Written by Derek Kolstad. You got a cool action hero, this guy right here. He's a retired assassin who is forced back into the game. And you can tell he's pissed off about it too. And they used actually a unique way to force him back into the game, which was pretty interesting. They have a semi-unique villain. I'm not going to say actually, once you get into the second and third, the villain is completely unique. In the original one, it's a Russian mobster with an army of hitmen. I'd say that one's kind of average. They're actually John Wick had success based upon John Wick. But later on, once he starts fighting the organization, everything changes on that. Unique action, gun fu. Now, by the way, first time I heard this, I thought, that's not real. So I went and looked it up on Wikipedia, and it turns out, yes, it is. What it basically comes down to is your ability to use a gun while doing whatever your style of martial arts is. And I have a black belt in Wing Chun Kung Fu. Cheryl has a black belt in Taekwondo. But in both cases, when we started playing with the possibility of guns, we were using plastic guns at that point. Uh, wow, that was hard. It was hard to come up from a flip and just automatically focus and aim. It was hard to point the gun without the possibility of hitting one of your ankles. It was hard to keep control of the gun the whole time. It was huge. It was very, very difficult. And you see in this movie, it's like their level of gun fu is incredible. Just go back and watch the kind of moves, and if what they were doing was real, that would be astounding. But there is a real gun fu. Go look it up on Wikipedia. So they brought in a unique action with a cool action hero. Those two pretty much get pretty close to selling it already. And then there's this impossible mission. How do you defeat 70 Russian bodyguards? Actually, they're kind of hitmen, to take revenge for them killing John's dog and stealing his car. And an intriguing action world. And this, I think, was the third thing that sold this movie. The secret society of assassins with their own currency, laws, and political structure. Now, look at those. You take those four things, and you've got a unique and compelling franchise. You've got something that is pretty easy to pitch. We'll go back to that in just a moment. Let's look at The Matrix, 1.6 billion. This guy looks familiar. I think he was in that last movie. It's by the Wachowski siblings. We've got a cool action hero, and this is back when most of this stuff we hadn't really seen. Neo is a cool action hero, and so is Trinity. Trinity's amazing. And we see her in the first scene. She steals the show from the very beginning. We've got a unique villain. The agents are invincible. They can dodge bullets. They can become any person in the Matrix. This is a really cool villain. We've got unique action. And back when this movie came out, we'd seen some pretty strong action in Bruce Lee movies and those kinds of things. But we had not seen this level of action. People running up walls, jumping from building to building, all the different kinds of fighting styles, dodging bullets, all of that kind of stuff. It's some pretty amazing action. And then an impossible mission. How do you turn Neo from a low-life hacker into the one who can subvert the Matrix? And notice this, on this one, the mission does require action, but it also is about the transformation of a human being. And that's why I think people watch this movie over and over. I have had, like, anytime we're talking about The Matrix, I ask people, how many times have you seen The Matrix? I'd say 70% of them have said 10 or more. And it's because of the transformational journey, turning this character, Neo, into the one. And then you've got an intriguing action world, computer simulated reality. It imprisons humans, but the agents have tremendous power. And in that action world, ultimately, Neo is going to gain the same level of power as them, and that takes us into The Matrix 2, 3, 4, etc. And then The Terminator. This one, I think is there's some unique things about The Terminator. So first thing, if you watch the very first Terminator, we've got this guy, Arnold Schwarzenegger. We've got the other guy coming back from the future, but who ultimately becomes that action hero is Sarah Connor, right? And in the beginning, she's a waitress who becomes the mother of the resistance. By the end of the first movie, if you're thinking she's not an action hero, by the end of the first movie, she is the only human being on the planet that has ever killed a Terminator. She has been trained. She has gone from being somebody who was scared to death, couldn't do a thing, to somebody who in the end took this guy down, took this impossible antagonist down. Kyle Reese is the unknowing father of John Connor, which also is kind of interesting the way they did it. He comes back to basically save Sarah Connor, not knowing that he's going to become the mother of John Connor, who sent him back. And I like that, the way they did that. And there's a lot of people that have watched Terminator over and over because of it. But if you haven't watched it thinking Sarah Connor is really the character who goes through the change, if you just watched it as an action movie, go back and watch it as a transformational journey for Sarah Connor. It's got a great transformational journey in it. The unique villain is the Terminator, human skin over an endoskeleton. But he's I think in the first one, he is one of the scariest villains that I'd seen in a long time when that movie came out. By the second one, he's helping out the kid, the young John Connor, and suddenly he becomes funny. It was amazing the journey they took there. The unique action, they kill the Terminator 10 times, but he keeps coming. So this is something where it's like they didn't really do anything that you would normally call some kind of unique action. But what they had was the Terminator caused them to have to keep upping their game. They had to keep finding another way. And if they hadn't found the final way, I think they wouldn't have survived, or she wouldn't have survived. The impossible mission, Kyle Reese must use 1984 weapons to stop this indestructible Terminator from murdering Sarah. So he's on a mission to save the mother of the future and ultimately her unborn child. And that's, in that situation with the Terminator, that's an impossible mission. And then the intriguing action world. And this is like 1984 isn't intriguing from that perspective, but having to kill the 2029 AI warrior, and doing that in 1984 makes it like not only impossible, but really intriguing. How are you going to figure that out? How are you going to solve that? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? What weapons are you going to use? They don't know. And every time we thought they had it, turned out they didn't. So this one made 2.1 billion. Pretty good, for something that was still fairly low budget in the beginning. So now let's talk about pitching and conventions. I walked you through the conventions earlier. And by the way, this is not the only way to pitch. We have other ways to pitch. We have strategies that we use all the time that get our people in the door. But this is an interesting way to tell your story. So you take the conventions and you turn them into a pitch. So just watch this, you'll see. First, know this, the conventions show up in the movie trailers. Let me back up. What conventions is basically what audiences are going to expect from a particular genre. So if I go to a comedy, I'm going to expect to laugh, right? If I go to a rom-com, I'm going to expect to fall in love and to experience what it's like to fall in love. If I go to a horror movie, I am going to expect to be scared out of my mind. That's the job, right? So I showed you the conventions of an action story. Those are basically what audiences expect, even if they can't articulate them. So if you ask an audience, what's the convention? They'll probably say at least a couple of them. but they may not articulate them well. But knowing what they are, I'm going to tell you, producers know. Producers understand. If you're talking to an action producer, they know what these conventions are. So just watch as we go. Our objective is to organize the conventions into a sequence that works, right? We're trying to tell a story, but we're doing it through these conventions. And then use the conventions to brainstorm different ways to pitch. So here's an example. John Wick. Let's start here. And I'll just read through this first and then show you how a producer hears it. In a secret society of assassins that has their own currency, laws, and political structure, only one man has been allowed to retire, and the Russian mob just forced him back into the game. Now, using his specialty, gun fu, he's going to fight 76 hitmen to get revenge for the killing of his wife's last gift to him, a little puppy. Ironically, she gave him the puppy to help him learn to love again. Now, let's pause. I'm not going to say that's the best pitch in the world. Don't worry about that. I want you to see what it really does. First thing, a producer is listening to this pitch. First thing they hear is an intriguing action world in a secret society of assassins that have their own currency, laws, and political structures. We haven't seen this, right? We've seen secret societies of assassins, but we haven't seen this part. Let's go to the next one. Then we have a cool action hero. Only one man has been allowed to retire, and he's using his specialty, gun fu. He's going to fight 76 hitmen to get revenge. Notice our cool action hero there. Then we have unique action, using his specialty, gun fu. Then we have an impossible mission. Again, he's going to fight 76 hitmen in order to get revenge or live or whatever. And finally, we have an emotional connection. They killed his wife's last gift to him, a little puppy. She gave him the puppy to help him learn to love again. Now, you can write that in 4 or 5 different ways, but what I wanted you to notice was this. Every single sentence speaks to what a producer needs to produce this movie. Every single sentence. And if you want to turn it around and write it in the opposite way, start with the puppy or whatever. If you want to start with why this guy left the Russian mob, or whatever it is, however you want to start this, or not the Russian mob, the Assassin Society, you can change things around, but all we're doing here is we're pitching in a way so that the producer sees the trailer. Basically, they see a movie, they see something that has the conventions and will entice audiences. So now, question that most people have is, but wait a minute, I come from nowhere. I haven't been in this industry before. I don't know action producers. Is it really possible for something to get produced from an unknown writer? So I want to look at a couple. James McCausland. Do you have any idea who he is? I didn't either, by the way. He wrote a movie called Mad Max. The franchise ended up making $400 million. And there's a new one coming out since that number. We'll see what it does. Then there's Derek Kolstad. I hope you've heard of him, but at the time that he came in the door, he was a total unknown, right? It's like he had made one little small movie or something like that. And he wrote John Wick, which he has benefited from every John Wick that has happened. I think he wrote the first either 2 or 3, but then at that point he was out, but he's still getting paid based upon the characters that he had created in there. And then there's Vincent Ngo. Vincent, most people have never heard of him. he wrote a script called Tonight He Comes, which became Hancock, starring Will Smith. It made 629 million. Just incredible. These are all three unknown writers, just like you, who have made things happen and have had huge success because they were able to write amazing action scripts. So why master action writing? A couple of reasons. First one is in contest. Contest, like if we back up 15 years ago, they weren't anything close to as sophisticated as they are right now. And when it comes to action writing, you could have won something pretty easily back then. Now, in order to move up, in order to actually end up winning, you need high-level action skills. You need to know what you're doing on that. If you want to get optioned, what this gives you and what we're going to be working with here is, first, it gives you a great pitch that can get the script in the door to producers. And then second from there, the tools to write a great script that ultimately can surprise producers and have them want to work with you. If you're looking to get an agent or a manager, mastering action writing, not just knowing how to write action, but mastering it. For a manager, they're looking for masters of the genre, right? This is, a lot of people think they're going to go in and say to a manager, oh, I can write in every genre. They don't want somebody who can write in every genre. That means you're the saying, you're what is it? A jack of all trades, right? It's like you're good at everything, but not great at anything. What they're looking for is someone who is truly great at something. And you can learn that very, very easily. Also, mastering action writing will have them see you as a pro, and it makes it so much easier for them to sell you for writing assignments. And this is where we've had people coming out of the class I'm going to talk with you about, who have gotten paid writing assignments as action writers. We've had people who have gotten movies made just because they went through this program. So here's the class. And by the way, if you are part of the Screenwriting Mastery membership, which we introduced, I think, 3 weeks ago, I think we sent it out in our newsletter. But if you're part of that membership, you get in this program at no charge. So just keep that in mind in case you're already in. But let me walk you through this class. This is a class that is designed to have you become a master at writing action scripts, and it's designed to have you become someone who, if you're working with a producer or an agent or a manager, you will have the skill set you need. So it starts with creating a marketable action concept. You absolutely need this if you're trying to get into a manager or an agent, or really a producer. Then it's about you creating the heroes and villains that will sell the roles. We're not just thinking of heroes and villains from the good guy, bad guy perspective. We're thinking of what will cause an actor or an actress to want to play these roles. Then creating the engaging mission, the mission that the audience is going to be engaged in from the very beginning. Building the mission track, the villain track, and the action track. And what these do is they have you create a plot that is fully designed for action. So let me go back for a second. You look at what the mission of the character is, and we design it all the way across the entire script. How do we make sure that the audience is constantly engaged in that mission? Then we look at the villain, and instead of thinking of them at the end, which is what a lot of people do, they come up with their good guy, and then somewhere they go, oh, who would be the bad guy? We're looking at it and saying, what's this villain going to do from the very beginning all the way to the end? What are the steps they're going to take? Who are they going to be that is going to be so scary that we are worried about our action hero from the very beginning? And then where's the action, right? you can't just build action into every single scene. That'll just start to seem monotonous. But you need to have action at certain places, and the action needs to be meaningful. It needs to be something that moves the character forward, moves the journey forward. At that point, once we have that plot, then we ask this question: why do we care? And if you think about John Wick, for instance, let's say we started John Wick at the beginning of the second act. We didn't look at the entire first act. If you did that, what we would have is just a mass murderer who we hate. But because they gave him a really strong why do we care, we went on this journey and we cheered as he killed 76 bad guys. Pretty amazing what a difference this makes. Then it's about twist, turns, reversals, betrayals. These are critical to an action movie. You need to be a master of these. And we've got models for every single one of them that just make them so powerful in your story. 10, now it's about the action emotions. And what we did here was, with our team, we had a team of all action writers. We went through and analyzed every emotion people feel in an action movie, and we defined them. We gave you a one-sentence definition and then a one-sentence how-to. Now, if you're thinking that's not that important, consider this. What's the difference between anguish and shock? Have you thought about that? Most people don't even know how to create anguish. A lot of people don't know how to define it. By the time you're done even with this lesson, you'll be able to look at any scene and say, okay, what I want to do is I want to start this scene with some fear. I want to then turn it into a shock. I want to create intrigue in the midst of that. And then we take it further. And there's like 5 other emotions that go with this that all go beyond these emotions. And you can actually sequence them in any action scene to make them incredible. And that's part of what the action story map ultimately is about. You build your entire map, which starts back here with the plotting. You add in all of these things. You take us on this mission. And now you've got a story map that, as you read through it, you can make sure it makes sense, that it works, that it escalates at the level it needs to escalate. This makes your story cohesive and powerful. At that point, it's about how do you write great action scenes? And if what you have, let's say you have 6 major action scenes. If you write them all the same way, you're probably in trouble. If you write them in an average way, you're in real trouble. If they don't move the story forward, if they don't cause us to care and want to go on this journey, and if they don't change the story as you go, these scenes haven't done the job they need to. So there's about 8 really important things in there, of which most people are missing 4 to 5 of them. And then now we're at nail-biting description. What you want when you write your action story, ultimately, when we're talking about the description, is you want the kind of description that will have a reader feel what's going on in your story. But you still need to use the show, don't tell rules. So we went through and found all the different ways that you could make this description something that would have a reader on the edge of their seat, have them constantly worried, have them feeling what's going on in the scene, especially those action scenes, right? It makes a huge difference knowing how to write that. And then finally, how do you format for action? Because the action genre is a little different. There are ways to format it that in and of itself will cause a reader to feel more. So all of these are important. By the time you're done with this, if you're working with an action producer, you will know exactly what you're doing. Now, the class starts on December 9th. Normal price on it's $199. Right now you can get in, and this is for the first 10, you can get in at $129, which saves you like $70 on that. All you got to do is go to this link right here, write it down, bit.ly, bit.ly /SU as in screenwriting U, action class. No spaces, no dashes, no capitals. Again, just write down bit.ly, bit.ly /SU action class. Put that in a browser where you normally put your web address, click return, and come join us. This will be an adventure where you create, the entire thing is about you creating a project that's amazing. You creating a project that gives you a real chance at success. And if what you want to do at some point is actually see your movie on the screen, then it's about you creating a project that has what is necessary to be able to have producers see you as a valuable action writer. So this also, one other thing that this does is it puts you ahead of 98% of the writers who are trying to come into this industry writing action screenplays. Most people are writing just off what they've seen on the screen and what comes to them as they go. What this will give you is 14 different ways to brainstorm higher quality writing, brainstorm higher quality action projects. 14 that are the ones that are the most important if you hope to sell. So again, just take that link, write it down, put it in the browser where you normally put a web address, come join us. The moment this class starts, you're going to be learning every day. It's an every other day class, but you're going to be doing the assignments and applying it to your script right now. So you've got about 30 days to brainstorm some ideas. Come in with a whole bunch of different action ideas. On the first day, you will pick the best one and immediately create a concept. I'll give you all the tools to be able to do that. And from that point on, you'll be writing, learning, growing, and becoming a significantly better action writer. So looking forward to seeing you in the class. And other than that, this is Hal Crosman wishing you the absolute best with your writing. I'll see you really soon with your action class. Bye-bye, everybody.